Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into 100 days of haptic pain surviving realistic Minecraft. Let's get right into it. Picture this. You're trapped in a single room with three of your buddies for hours on end, attempting what is probably the ultimate endurance test. Today, we're breaking down an absolutely grueling challenge where your digital mistakes have very real and very painful physical consequences. See these players? They aren't just lounging in comfy gaming chairs mashing buttons. No, they're strapped into haptic feedback suits. Every single time they take damage in the game, the suit delivers a literal physical shock to their bodies. They have exactly 100 in-game days to defeat the notoriously brutal Ender Dragon, and if they fail, well, they have to drink a blended smoothie made out of literally every single food item available in Minecraft. Gross, right? So, the stakes are set, the clock is ticking, and guys, the pain is absolutely real. Now, you might be wondering how this actually works. Well, these custom mechanics fundamentally rewrite how you play the game. Not only do the haptic suits violently zap them for taking damage, but get this. To skip the perilous night cycle in the game, the players have to actually go to sleep in real life, like in the same room, together. But honestly, the wildest mechanic of all, the real-world food supply is completely tied to their digital actions. So if they craft a steak in the game and throw it into lava, an actual cooked steak gets delivered to their physical front door. It literally turns digital survival tactics into real-world life support for a bunch of very hungry guys. As you can imagine, the learning curve here was incredibly steep. The squad got a rude awakening almost immediately. Take Darius, for example. He was just out gathering resources, doing standard everyday Minecraft chores, right? Suddenly, he gets ambushed by a skeleton. Normally, that's just a minor inconvenience. But here, man, every single arrow is a massive, painful physical zap. He ends up getting killed in just 3 shots, literally screaming in pain, and immediately loses 40 minutes worth of freshly gathered wood. It became glaringly obvious very quickly that casual mistakes weren't just annoying anymore, they were physically painful setbacks that tanked the whole team's timeline. And because they're stuck in this physical room for days on end, real-world starvation actually starts setting in. So they have to completely pivot their in-game priorities. Instead of, mining for diamonds or building cool bases, priority number 1 becomes hunting digital cows and harvesting digital carrots. When they chuck that digital food into the lava, they hear a knock at their actual front door. They are literally trading virtual crops for real-world calories just to keep their physical bodies functioning. It is wild to watch. To really grasp the sheer scale of this challenge, we have to look at the overarching timeline they were up against. I mean, they spent the first few days just trying not to get zapped to death by standard low-level mobs. By day 40, they had to push into the highly dangerous nether dimension. And by day 56, well, we're going to get to the disaster shortly. But the ticking clock of day 100 constantly looms over everything. They literally cannot take their time. Every single real-world hour translates to game days ticking away toward that ultimate deadline. And of course, that dreadful punishment smoothie. So, jumping to day 40, they reach a massive turning point, entering the Nether. Now, if you know Minecraft, you know this dimension is packed with fire, lava, and hostile enemies everywhere, which meant the haptic suits were going absolutely crazy. To get the blaze rods they desperately needed to beat the game, they had to shift to this highly tactical, almost heist-like strategy. They literally designated Darius as the sacrifice. Yeah, they sent him in first just to draw the enemy fire and take the physical shocks. Meanwhile, the rest of the team would just bum rush the blaze spawner, destroy it, and then instantly retreat into a pre-built dirt bunker to kind of lick their wounds and recover from the intense pain. And look, this tactical maneuvering takes a brutal toll on the human body. The constant electrical zaps weren't just some funny gimmick. The players were actively complaining about pounding real-life headaches. They even talked about how their abdominal muscles were incredibly sore from just violently clenching every time the suit shocked them. They were getting physically beaten down by a video game, all while trying to maintain the extreme mental focus you need to navigate lava lakes and dodge fire-breathing monsters. All of this utter exhaustion perfectly set the stage for the most devastating moment of the entire run. I want you to picture the scene, okay? It's 4 a.m. in the real world. The guys are severely sleep-deprived. They are deep underground on day 56, just trying to secure their gear. Then, suddenly, total chaos erupts. A creeper drops down out of nowhere and detonates right on top of them. A baby zombie swarms into their little defense hole. One by one, in a panic of screams and endless haptic shocks, they are picked off. The screen goes red, which leads us to the terrifying question. What did the boys just lose? Everything. Seriously, just let that sink in for a second. 10 full, real-life hours of continuous, painful grinding. The diamonds, the armor, those incredibly hard-fought ender pearls, the blaze rods from the nether, all of it instantly wiped out in a matter of seconds. It was the ultimate demoralizing blow. They were completely back to square one, totally stripped of resources, and forced to literally go punch a tree to start the whole 10-hour process over again. But this time, they had less than half the days remaining. So, it's now 6 a.m. They've pulled an agonizing all-nighter just to recover some of what they lost. And this is exactly when the severe sleep deprivation really takes the wheel. The players start experiencing what they called the 3 a.m. giggles. You know the feeling, right? Just laughing deliriously at absolutely nothing, making dumb mistakes, and physically struggling to keep their eyes open under their covers while trying to farm items. This digital endurance test had officially crossed the line into a test of human cognitive limits. But you know, human ingenuity always shines when things look the bleakest. By day 95, with team morale at absolute rock bottom, they realized they could actually hack their own rules to survive. They were exhausted, sore, barely even functioning, and then a stroke of genius hits them. They remembered the food delivery mechanic, so they painstakingly gathered virtual wheat, sugar, eggs, and milk, crafted an in-game cake, and tossed it straight into the lava. Minutes later, a massive, decadent, real-life cake arrived at their door. This incredible sugar rush was the exact physical and mental boost the team desperately needed to wake up, shake off the exhaustion, and gear up for the final fight. And that brings us to the absolute climax of the entire challenge. It is day 99. They have literally one in-game day left. In real life, it's the next morning, meaning they're running entirely on fumes and tiny micronaps. They're standing right at the edge of the end dimension. The threat of drinking that blended, gross food smoothie is hanging incredibly heavy in the air. The host looks at them and just says, leave everything on the line. It is quite literally do or die. The final battle against the Ender Dragon is pure, unadulterated chaos. They jump into the portal and are immediately swarmed. I'm talking getting blasted by dragon breath, stepping in poison, getting swatted high into the air. Through the cameras, you can literally hear them crying out as the haptic suits just continuously zap them while their digital health bars rapidly drain. They are desperately trying to shoot the healing crystals, screaming at each other to whack like your life depends on it. It's a frantic, low health, completely uncoordinated, but deeply passionate scramble for survival. 100. Exactly on the 100th day, the final blow lands. The dragon shatters into 1,000,000 pieces of glowing experience points. They did it. The room just erupts in this exhausted, euphoric cheering. But you know what the very first thing they do is? It actually isn't celebrating the digital victory. Nope. It's furiously ripping those haptic pain suits off their aching bodies. They unplugged the pain sensors with such immense relief, they pushed through physical shock, total exhaustion, and a massive mid-game disaster to secure the win literally right at the buzzer. Which brings us to a fascinating close. We've seen how bridging the gap between a digital game and real-world physical consequences pushes players to their absolute limits. It forces highly tactical gameplay, exposes raw emotional responses to devastating setbacks, and requires just incredible stamina. They survived the pain, the exhaustion, and the Ender Dragon itself. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought. If you were trapped in that room, how many real-life haptic shocks would you be willing to endure to avoid drinking a blended punishment smoothie? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning where your own limits lie.